Hey guys, I'm back and we're talking about Elixir, which is part of, it's a novella, but it's part of the Deity ebook. So if you buy the ebooks, you will get all of the novellas. So you get Demon, which is part of Half-Blood, and you get Elixir, which is part of Deity. So it's book 3.5. But when I got them, they were separate books. So that's the OG cover. And I guess there's not a new cover since they're part of the ebooks. I don't know. Because they probably have included the novellas because they did a new cover. So probably the novellas are included in the re-release in the new covers. So, I wish, I know y'all know Imelda, but let me tell you, my friend Imelda feels everything in her soul, and I love her reactions, and I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when she read this, because, whew, it's rough, y'all. It is rough. It's rough. So, like I said, this one's from Aiden's point of view. It is basically, I mean, you see the name of it, right? We know what the elixir does. If you're up to this point, we know what the elixir does. The elixir is what the pures use to subjugate the halves that become servants, okay? It makes them compliant. So, in the previous book, Alex awakened as the Apollyon. Apollo immediately rushes in and says, let her go to Aiden. In this book, they are trying to get her to break the connection with Seth, to kind of wake up and be herself. And she's dangerous. She's the Apollyon. So she can kill all of them and none of them can kill her, nor do they want to, but I'm just saying she is like a rabid animal. And they are trying to get her to break the connection with Seth. They are running out of ways to control her, to keep her safe from herself. So they have no choice but to put her on the elixir. And so that is why this book is from Aiden's point of view, because Alex is, and Aiden is the one, telling the story at this point. So, it just, oh God, it's rough. It's rough reading Elixir. Elixir kind of breaks your heart. It's rough. But, there are good things that come out of it. So, I love Jennifer Armentrout. I love the series. So, of course, I'm going to give it 5 stars. I'm going to say read it. So, don't forget, if you're reading the ebooks, that it is on the back of Deity. Okay, so that's kind of the review, and now for the nitty-gritty, spoilery recap. So, when we open up, Alex is in a cell that was built by Hephaestus, because that's the only way they could contain her, right? But even that, some of the runes and stuff they put on the cell, her magic kind of burns through it. And she is yelling at Aiden, being just nasty. Like, when we open up, she's yelling at Aiden and saying, if you don't let me out, I'm going to rip your brother's ribs out and wear him as a crown. Yeah. And when she first awakened, she gave their location to Seth. They had to move. So they're in a different area. Apollo had to knock her out with a god bolt just so they could move her and put her in the cell. Aiden punched Apollo for knocking Alex out with a god bolt. So she asks him how it's going to feel when he stands around and watches her do it, just like he stood around and watched his parents get killed. Yeah, it's rough. Because, Alex would never say or do these things. And that's what makes it, so hard, because it's not Alex at all at any point during this book. Like, sometimes you get little glimpses of Alex. It's tough. So you kind of feel how rough it must be for Aiden. So she tries crying. She tries begging. She's like, please, I have to go to him. I need him. She tries threatening. Then she says, he will find me. You'll never be him. You'll never beat him. And she hasn't eaten in 4 days. She hasn't showered. Ever since the awakening. She just keeps saying how much she hates Aiden. She needs Seth. Marcus comes down. She tries to compel him to let her out. Aiden has to kind of like shake him out of it. She tells Marcus that Aiden took advantage of her and compelled her to have sex with her. And Marcus is just like, yeah, I know he's a bastard, but I doubt he compelled you. And I've already punched him twice for the things that you guys have done. And then Solos calls down to him, and Marcus is like, do not come down here. Like, she will have you hanging from the rafters. And so Solos tells him that Apollo is back, and Alex is like, don't you leave me. And Aiden is like, I thought you were tired of seeing my face. And she's like, fine, leave. I don't care. I hate you anyway. I mean, she's just nasty, y'all. Just nasty. And he reaches through the bars and holds that crystal rose necklace that he gave her, if you remember from Deity, and says, no, you don't, or you would have destroyed this. And she's like, give me time and I will. And he says, as long as you wear that, I know there's hope. And then Solos is like, you know, they're upstairs talking about her because she's kept in a cell in the basement. And Solos is like, well, we could just like force feed her. And Marcus is like, you know, no, if you come near her, like, she'll tear you apart. And then Solos tells him that Apollo is in a bad mood because he can't find a way to break the bond. And Seth is up to no good because it's Seth and Lucian. And Aiden is like, we'll find a way. And Solos is like, what if we don't? And maybe it's more humane to put her down. And Aiden proceeds to punch poor Solos. So Marcus has to get Aiden. And Aiden is like, he's going to kill anybody who comes near her. And then Apollo has to get on to Aiden. And Apollo tells them they have bigger problems than Alex. Yeah, what's going on that they have bigger problems than Alex? Like, that's scary. So he tells them that there's a war brewing, a war between the gods and the ones following the first. Apollo summons Dionysus, and Dionysus tells them that there is an encampment around the Nashville, Tennessee covenant, and that he has spies, like he keeps the drink flowing and the women flowing, and he hears things. And there's 100 half-blood guards and sentinels with them. So Dionysus, I've just been calling him D because that's just too much to keep saying. So D says, whatever those two are selling, the halves are buying it up. And Aiden says, probably freedom. And they have this whole conversation about how the halves aren't really free and, you know, that they're limited in their choices. And so D tells them that they're planning on making a move on New York, but they're waiting for Seth and Alex. And the gods can't agree on what to do. Some of them want to see if there's a way to kill Seth and Lucian. Like, some of them want to go ahead and go to war, and some of them are waiting to see what happens, and some of them just want to kill Alex and problem solved. So they ask about Thanatos, and D tells them that he gave him a code, but he doesn't remember what it is. He's like, yeah, Thanatos gave him some kind of code, but he don't remember what it is. So some of Lucian's guards are hunting the Order members because, of course, Lucian doesn't want anything to happen to his Apollons. And who can kill Apollons? The Order of Thanatos and another Apollon. Well, you don't got to worry about the other Apollon because Alex is... So it's just the Order of Thanatos. So Lucian has guards looking for Order members and killing them. So Apollo nods at Aiden. He steps in the hall and you know, he's kind of like, hey, dude, there's somebody out there. So Aiden steps out in the hall, and it's it's Luke and Deacon eavesdropping. And he's like, at first he's going to tell him to run off, but he's like, you know, they're fixing to be adults, and they're part of this. So y'all come on in. Let's all talk like adults. So Paula tells him that he has like a temporary solution. And he tells them they're not going to like it. That he's been speaking to Ananke, and Marcus is like, no. Ananke? And Deacon is like, who is Ananke? And I'm just like, same Deacon, because I've read it before, and I don't remember who Ananke is. And Luke tells him that she rules over compulsions and bondage. She's the one that created the elixir. And Apollo says it would be a special elixir just for Alex, and it would only be temporary. And Apollo tells him that he's turned Olympus inside out trying to find a way to break the bond. And Aiden goes off, he knows that the elixir, being put on the elixir, was one of Alex's like greatest fears, right? So he's like, no, we're not doing that to her. And Leah points out, I love that Leah, who used to be like Alex's enemy, is now kind of the one that can be objective, right? And she's like, she doesn't have any control now. Like, she doesn't have any control over herself now. So what's the difference? And Aiden tells Marcus, you know how scared she was of the elixir. And Marcus is like, I know, but we have to do something. Like, we can't keep going like this. And Marcus tells Aiden there's something else that Alex was afraid of. She was afraid of losing herself to Seth, and that's exactly what's happened. So Apollo talks to Aiden in private and tells him that the Apollyon has always been of his lineage, and he doesn't know who was responsible for Solaris, and he doesn't know who was responsible for Seth. So somebody is up to something. And he says none of the gods are claiming responsibility for Seth, and he thinks they're keeping it quiet on purpose because they're pulling the strings behind Lucian and Seth. So Aiden is like, so a god is helping Leon, and Apollo says that's the other reason that they wouldn't claim them, because only the god who's connected to them blood-wise can kill them. So Apollo can kill Alex. And he tells him that he doesn't want to, but if she was about to transfer her power to Seth, he would. And Apollo reminds Aiden of his duty to protect mankind and the Hematoid. And Aiden is like, well, how am I supposed to choose between my duty as a sentinel and my duty as a man? And Apollo is like, well, you know, it's kind of both, because she's not going to last much longer like this. She's not sleeping. She's not eating. She's not going to, you know, last much longer. We have to do something. And Aiden's like, well, just let me think about it for tonight. And he goes in there to see Alex to try one more time to get through to her, and she ends up fighting like a darn demon. And he tells her to stop being weak, that he loves her, he loves how strong she is, and he wants to see her. And so her eyes change, and it's Alex's brown eyes instead of Seth's golden eyes. And she begs him to make it stop. She says, it hurts so bad, please make it stop. And so that's what kind of, you know, makes up his mind for him, because Alex is begging him to make it stop. So he agrees. Ananke shows up and gives Apollo a picture with the mark of servitude on it. And she tells them just to give her a shot of it and then finish the compulsion. And that Alex will be different. She will not be like herself. And that they shouldn't give her more than 6 doses or it'll be permanent. So they go to the cell. Marcus, Aiden, and Apollo, and Aiden holds her while Marcus forces the elixir on her, and then Aiden has to do the compulsion. Y'all, oh my God, like, I cried. Y'all know I cry anyway, but it's just like, Aiden having to be the one to do this to her is just, okay. So when he tells her, after she drinks the thing and it kicks in and she kind of relaxes, he tells her, Alex, look at me. Her eyes are shattered. So they're her brown eyes with streaks of gold in them. And he says, hey, buddy. The dog came in. And he tells her that her name is Alexandria and his name is Aiden and he's her master. And she will obey his every wish, desire, and command to death. And she is just like, so soft and meek and skittish and just like not Alex at all, because Alex was bold and brazen and brave and, you know, just this, you know, force of nature. Well, because she's the Apollyon. But also that's just Alex. That's her personality. So, he has to tell her, like, he has to tell her to eat. He has to tell her to take a shower. So he's getting her clothes together, and Deacon comes in and finds him, and he's like, look, I knew that you guys loved each other from the minute you came back from Atlanta. And he's like, you know, just take a shower and rest, and, you know, it'll be okay. And Aiden tells him that he knows about Luke and he doesn't care. So Aiden takes a shower. When he comes out, Alex is asleep. So he covers her up and goes downstairs to like hit the punching bag. And Alex sleeps for like 24 hours. And they sit in the sunroom until they can't stand it, because Aiden can't stand just like sitting around looking at plants. So they go up to the sitting room. Apollo comes in, and Alex like actually hides behind Aiden because she's scared of him. And Apollo tells him that Seth is not happy about not being able to make contact, and that he's killing any sentinels that won't join him. And some of the forces are headed for New York. So Apollo left these it says the name, but I'm not even gonna try and say the name. They're these like automaton bulls, like machines to protect the New York Covenant. So Apollo leaves Aiden, gives Alex, Aiden gives, because Alex like, my head's starting to hurt, and he thinks it's a sign that the elixir's wearing off. So he gives her 2 aspirin, and when he goes to sleep on the couch, he's letting her sleep in bed, he's sleeping on the couch. When he wakes up, she's all snuggled up against him. And he's like, you know, what are you doing? She's like, oh, it doesn't hurt as bad when I'm close to you. She said, I feel like somebody's trying to talk to me from far away, and it's Seth trying to make contact. So the next day he gives her another dose, and then another dose 4 days later, and they're playing chess, and she's like sitting beside him, and he's like, you can't sit beside me if we're playing chess. And she's like, but I like sitting beside you. And she's like, I like you. And I mean, you know, she's kind of childlike. So she tells him that sometimes she feels like there should be more to her, more with him, more to her life. And he tells her that there is. And this is a quote from Aiden. I would burn down the world if that meant Alex would be safe. So Deacon comes out and tells them Olivia and LaDawn want to come there. Aiden tells them, I don't care, just check with Marcus. And Deacon makes a joke about Alex being Rain Man, and Aiden like goes off on him. And Alex gets scared because Aiden has raised his voice and is hiding in a closet. And he goes and sits in the closet with her to try and, like, you know, comfort her, figure out what's going on. And she says, I keep having these dreams. You'll kill the ones you love, have I? And he tells her, no, it's just dreams. And he tells her about the first time he saw her. He said he was like 16, she was like 14. He was walking past the training rooms, and he heard somebody laughing. And he said, that's usually not what you hear in the training rooms, is laughing. So he peeked in and saw her sparring with, he starts to say Caleb and then catches himself and says a friend. He saw her sparring with a friend, and they were both laughing. And she's like, did you know me? And he says, no, but I knew you were amazing. And so Apollo shows up like after the 4th dose and tells them that the Sentinels never made it to New York. They scattered in Pennsylvania because of the automaton, but the forces in Nashville has like doubled. He tells them that he can't find a way to break the compulsion. He tells Aiden to prepare, that he's preparing for the worst, and Aiden needs to as well. And he tells Aiden that he would make sure that she was taken care of, that they could do a Persephone thing so she could get like 6 months. 6 months in the real world, 6 months in the underworld, so Aiden could still see her. And Aiden's like, you're asking me to let you kill her. Like, that's what you're asking me to do, is for me to sign off on you killing her. And Apollo tells him, he's like, there wouldn't be any pain. And he said, you know, I love her. Well, he doesn't say, you know, I love her. He says, you know, I care for her. I've watched her grow up. And Aiden tells him to get out. So he takes Alex outside, and she's sitting on a log playing with flowers, and he's just kind of standing back watching her. And he gets the feeling like a god is showing up, and it's Clotho, one of the Fates. And he moves to block Alex, and she's like, I'm not here to hurt her. And he asks, well, why are you here? And she says that she's been watching them, and she knows that he loves Alex. And she tells him that their threads of fate, life, whatever, are intertwined. And it's not by her doing. And he asks what's going to happen to Alex, and she says, I don't know. But she tells him that her thread is intertwined with Seth's too. And she tells him love is such a wild and reckless creature. Because she's like, you know, there's one thing we don't ever consider when we're spinning the threads of fate, and that's love. And he's like, what? And she says, this is a quote from Clotho. She says, love is such a wild and reckless creature. It cannot be planned or threaded. It cannot be controlled. Love can coexist with fate, or it can undo it. Love is the only thing more powerful than fate. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. So she asks him, you want to know how to break the connection? And he's like, yeah. And she steps forward and puts her hand on his chest and says, there is no God or person. Y'all, I love this book. Okay. There is no God or person who can break the connection, but there is still hope. Oh. There is the heart, Aiden. There is love, which means there's always hope. Yeah. Then Clotho disappears. It clicks. And he's like, you know, can it be that simple? It's our love for one another. So he asks her if she believes in love, and she says yes, she thinks she's in love. Oh, so Alex is still in there. Okay. This book, y'all. So Aiden leaves Alex in bed, puts on his Sentinel uniform, because he is like gonna fight for his woman, and puts the rune on the wall to protect the house from Apollo so Apollo can't get him. He meets with everybody, tells them only Alex can break the connection, that they have to give her the chance. And Solo's is like, well, didn't we kind of give her a chance when she was acting like a rabid raccoon in the basement? And Aiden's like, we didn't give her enough of a chance. Like, we need to trust her. We need to, you know. So he tells them that he's taking her off the elixir, and that if anybody doesn't agree with it and don't want to be part of it, they need to leave now. Because they're also kind of going against Apollo by doing this. And they all agree. So they've got Aiden and Alex's back. He's going to lock her in the cell and fight for his woman. Oh, you guys. And that's the end. This book. I have cried so much on this freaking reread. Like, what? I don't think I hardly ever cried on the first one. I've cried so much on this reread. Okay, so that's Elixir. Next will be Apollyon, I believe. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.